First and foremost, I want to welcome everyone to eCap 2020, first panel session entitled, It's No Longer What It Was, It Is What It Is. I've got a lot of questions on what that actually means. I'm not sure that I have an answer, but I think from the title, we can deduce that there was something, and maybe differently, there is something today. Clearly, things are changing in the industry. But the concept here today, and throughout the next couple of days, we have some sessions and panels and speeches around some of the technical aspects of the business, reimbursement, regulatory, et cetera. But many people attending this conference, as I'm looking out on the crowd, not only is it a growing crowd, but there are new faces here. There are people that are getting into the industry in the last couple of years. There are those people that have been in the industry who have been growing their portfolios. And there are those people who may have been in the industry for a while and have decided it's time to get out of the industry. Either way, I think the opportunity here is to take advantage of the time we have to impart some wisdom, opinions, and thought on our industry from individuals who've actually done it for quite some time. They're in different stages of their careers. They each have stellar reputations as knowledgeable, practical operators that can leave us all with what to think about as we leave. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our panel. My name is Mark Berger. I'm the moderator. I've been in the industry for about 25 years now. I always joke around that this work is like dog years, and hence it's about 125 years. Don't know how that makes you feel, Bob.
Very, like an old dog. So.
Yeah. I'm the founder and CEO for Villa Healthcare, which owns, manages, and operates close to 50 facilities around the Midwest. As I just mentioned, Robert Hartman, he's the founder of Symphony Care Network, currently operates over 5,000 beds throughout the states, twice awarded the Governor's Award for Excellence in Long-Term Care, past president of the Healthcare Council of Illinois Statewide Healthcare Association, and currently a board member of Genesis Healthcare Formation Development Group and a senior advisor to Next Healthcare. For those that don't know, I grew up in this industry under the wings of Bob and consider him a mentor. And
equally.
So we can blame him?
Yeah, probably. But it's really a privilege to have you on the stage today.
Thank you, Mark.
Ronnie Wilheim. Ronnie has been in the business since 1993, where he started as legal counsel for CommuniCare, and today is the president of his company. CommuniCare is one of the largest privately held nursing home chains in the country. Ronnie is highly sought out for issues pertaining to political advocacy, as well as his position and opinion on policy. And last but not least, Norman Rokeach is the CEO of Marquis Health Services. Under Norman's direction, his company has grown immensely over the last 5 to 10 years. Norman has a reputation for being the hardest working man in the industry. His availability today is limited between 1 and 2 a.m. or at 5:30 when he wakes up. Otherwise, you can't get a hold of him. And while I may have picked on him a little bit in high school as a youngster, I do turn to him for very practical advice as an operator in the industry today. So let's get at it if we don't mind.
Yep.
The industry has changed a lot over the years. What I'd like to hear is talk to us a little bit about one area or a specific change that has impacted you the most and how your organization deals with it. Norman, if you don't mind, we'll kick it off to you.
Sure, thank you. So being in the industry for 20 years now, I believe there have been multiple changes over the years. I think a couple of items stick out, one being census. I think the challenges that we see with the ACOs and their requirements, dealing with their requirements. I think what we do as an organization, bring value add to those health systems, developing specialty programs, dialysis programs, other programs that bring value to them. From a perspective, a litigation perspective, I think that has grown immensely over the last couple of years as well. We have developed at Marquis, we've developed our own risk management program, which is an independent program from the rest of the departments. So it's independent of the clinical program, independent of the operations program. They don't answer to the operations, they don't answer to the clinical program. That's really helped bring down our premiums immensely. We work hand in hand with our carriers, hand in hand with the attorneys. And through having that hands-on risk management program has really helped us a lot.
So I know, Bob, we've talked about this for quite some time. We're talking about the legal challenges and some of the things that our industry has faced. I know you've been front and center in Illinois, which is probably one of the most litigious counties in the country.
Ground zero and all of that. So, yeah, a couple of points just to follow up on Norman. You know, probably in the 40 some odd years that I've been in the business, the last 5 years, probably since 2015, has seen the most remarkable change. The change being the penetration of managed care into the industry, the change from a fee-for-service to a value-based system, and really how we're dealing with it. Everybody went upside down the last number of years trying to adjust to this. And, but most importantly, I will tell you, getting close to Medicare age myself, that I would never think that somebody would give up a classic, wonderful Medicare program to become part of a managed care where somebody would tell them which doctor, which hospital, which this you could pick or not pick and so forth for a free pair of glasses and a little extra something, right? So we never saw that wave coming until it actually came, and it came too powerfully. And quite frankly, the managed care companies have us, and they have us squeezing us. And I'm very, very concerned about the future, that they're just going to continue to ratchet that down unless we fight back. And believe it or not, they're very arrogant about some of the things that they do. They break CMS rules left and right all the time in the ways that they do it. We as an industry need to challenge every bit of the way, and the only way to do that is in court. I'm advocating strongly that we should do every legal challenge possible to managed care every time something comes up. We don't get paid, eligibilities, denials, anything at all along the process, let's fight.
Ronnie.
I have a viewpoint on what the most important change is, but I just want to discuss that exact point. It's easy to say that if you're in New York City, where census is 98%, and as a result, managed care can't direct patients to other facilities by not contracting with you. But the first legal challenge you have, you'll find it very hard to be in networks, and you'll be fighting without buildings to fight for.
Totally agree with you.
So, you know,
Totally
we have to
agree
be
with you.
very
We got to fight it as a
judicious.
group. We
Right.
got to fight
Unless
it
it's a
together.
group, it can't be done.
No individual should stand out in front.
My viewpoint on the change in the industry, and I think the biggest change, is the type of residents and patients we have. So when I first went into the business, they were people who, on the Medicaid side, were walking and talking, and you could count on them for years to be in your building, and they were very stable. Today, our Medicaid residents are either behavioral, might even have substance abuse problems, or literally are in the last months of their life, and therefore they're highly acute and unstable. On our Medicare side, we used to get hip replacements and strokes, and so it was heavy rehab. Today, we are having people who are entering our facilities from acute episode of a chronic disease. They have multiple comorbidities, are incredibly unstable, and because even if they're not part of managed care, because the doctors have been trained, the length of stay has gone from, you know, look, in the old days, 100 days when they went back for a flu, to literally 17, 18 days. And as a result,
If you're lucky.
therefore Medicare is not as profitable as it used to be, because you make your money on the end of the days when you're providing less services. So the patient population is driving many, many of the issues we have, such as census. If you have a lower length of stay, if our Medicaid,
It's dramatic.
if our Medicaid was 2 or 3 years, and now I'll tell you right now, our company is 9 months average Medicaid, obviously you need more people. People make a mistake. We have more Medicare admissions, more. People do not understand. But the length of stay has shrunken so much, you need literally double, triple the amount of people passing through.
Yeah.
And it's killing the staff. That's the problem. Part of the reason is no one wants to work in our industry is it's brutal, because the churn. So even in a Medicare building, which is beautiful and has all the accoutrements, the churn is killing people.
Good point.
All valid points. I think I get calls all the time from people who want to pick my brains or the brains of my team, particularly those that are getting into the industry, wanting to grow. One of the terms that comes up all the time is finding the right financial partner, financing partner. Obviously, relationship with banks or with lenders is extremely important. When somebody talks to you, Ronnie, about what the right financing partner is, what comes to mind for you?
It depends on who brought me the deal. So many times REITs are bringing the deals because remember, there's a certainty to close. So as a result, sellers will take less money to work with a REIT, or sometimes a REIT, buildings have gone sideways and they give you an opportunity. So that's very interesting. Or many times REITs are willing to do creative solutions. So we have relationships with 3 REITs and have had very positive experiences. At the same time, we also own a large portfolio of buildings ourselves. And when we find the buildings ourselves, then a lot of times it makes sense because especially if we're going to pay full value, and sometimes it makes sense for us to pay full value because it's in the market we're in or we think there's potential in the building, then really REIT financing becomes difficult because it's a bit more expensive. So if we have the capital, we buy it ourselves so that we can take advantage of HUD, which is, 30-year fixed rate, non-recourse finance.
And before I get to Bob on this, are you a believer in HUD? Is that
I'm
something
a big believer in HUD. It comes in 2 flavors for us, REIT or HUD. You bridge to HUD. I mean, you can't go straight to HUD, but yes.
Sure.
I'm in agreement with Ronnie on the right circumstances. Of course, REITs are very vital and important to the whole process. But I feel differently about the standardized REIT model. The standardized REIT model, which is long-term ownership by the REIT and escalating rents, that was the model that was in place for many, many years, I think is dead. I think that REIT model is dead. We are in a completely different environment than we were in the 90s or the 2000s. We are in a value-based environment. I think that the way to work is joint ventures between OpCo and PropCo, joint ventures that build incentives so that they're properly aligned, those 2 entities. I think that models that when I started in the industry 40 years ago, nobody bought a facility on a lease situation unless there was an option to buy it. And the concept of being a tenant for 20 years with 2% escalating leases, nobody's going to put money into their buildings. Nobody's going to keep up with the change in the programs. Nobody's going to do the things that are necessary to be done in a constantly dynamic market. And therefore, I think that model has to change.
Norman, I don't know your experiences, but when you think about it, what is that optimal partner? What are you looking for?
Well, we have 2 primary lenders over the years. I think one of the lenders we work with, my partner's family, has a 30-year relationship. I think many of the facilities that we've bought over the years have been turnaround facilities. So having a partner that understands the culture and the vision of how you take a facility from ground zero to where your vision is, fully supporting, backing it. I think one of our lenders makes it a habit at least once a year to come to our facilities, meet our teams, discuss the challenges, talk about what the plans are. For us, that's very comforting to know that we're working with a lender that, even if those things don't go exactly the way it's planned, will fully support, your goals.
And so in an environment where you are taking on buildings that are challenging or those that are not financially performing when you take them over, does your lender lend on pro forma basis? Is that something that they're partnering with you on?
Absolutely. I think, our results over the years have given them that comfort level that they've been able to fully give that rates that we're looking for and fully support us.
I would like to discuss one area of financing which I feel is fraught with danger, and that is a syndication on a deal-by-deal basis. Because I have friends, we've never done that, but I have friends who have, and it's invariably, I can't speak for that, for my esteemed colleagues, but for us, we have buildings that make $100,000 a month. We have buildings that lose $100,000 a month. And invariably, the buildings, if you're in a syndicate that make $100,000, it's not past 9:30 that the people, on the first of the month, the people expect a check. And those buildings that are losing $100,000 a month, guess what? When you call for the capital call, no one's home. You can't reach them. So then you get yourself into a cash bind, and you cannot move money from place to place because it's different partnerships. In our business, it's very simple. At the end of the month, whoever needs money gets money, from the people who have money in our system because it's consistent. So anyone who wants to finance like that really has to open a company, have the same partners, so everyone is starting from the same spot so that you don't get yourself into trouble.
I so agree with you because scale matters today. You have to have that scale to cover all these different formulas.
Clearly, we're working in an industry that is extremely regulated and extremely scrutinized. And one of the challenges that we always run into is that one or two stories that hits the front pages of some newspaper, and seemingly our industry takes a bad rap on a continuous basis. That said, compliance is at the forefront of what we do. Bob, you've been at this the longest. I'll turn to you first. How do we, as responsible operators, stay out of trouble? And can you tell us what we need to be thinking about that perhaps we may have not been thinking about, or those that haven't given it much thought, or have given a lot of thought, but you've got all the experience and you've seen it?
Well, a couple of things. I am very concerned about the fact that there's an awful lot of young guys getting into the industry that have not seen some of the very negative things that have happened over the last 40 years that I've been in business, right? So, for example, one bad New York Times series, not an article, but a series, which they do, on quality of care or care-related issues or kickback-related issues, things of this nature, starts a process where Senate hearings, congressional hearings, and so forth, that lead to outcomes that dramatically change the business. They have a very negative effect on the business. And this has happened over the course of my career around 3 or 4 times. And I think it's incumbent upon everybody to keep that in the back of their minds and recognize that. If you're in this business and you're not leading with quality care and quality service, you're not compliant and you're not doing all of those pieces of the puzzle, you will get in trouble, but more importantly, you're going to get the whole industry in trouble. So you need to be thinking about that and recognizing that from the very get-go. And simultaneously with that, I think that we're a very easy target, and politically, people use us as a target. I'll tell you one story. In Illinois, we have a reputation for having many governors that have gone to jail. And one of those particular governors, who's still in jail right at the particular moment, who came to see me about campaign contribution when he first started running, I said to him, Rod, I would be happy to help you. I said, but I'm asking for one thing. Between now and the election, please don't take a cheap shot against the industry by showing someone in a wheelchair and how you're going to regulate us and reform us and this and that and so forth. Just be neutral on that and don't take that position. And his response to me was, how about those cubbies? Those cubbies are great, okay? In other words, he was not willing to do that because it's too easy for a politician, in a certain situations, in election years like we're having right now, and we have to be very cognizant of that. I would like to talk at length, but maybe not at this moment, about the political process and how we need to be involved. I'll leave that up to you. So.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
There's no question, I think that, Norman, one of the things that we've been talking about lately, a lot about, is political advocacy and strengthening the industry and the reputation that we have. So we understand some of what that's about. One of the comments that was made to me when I asked, who are the champions of the industry on the Hill? And the answer was, well, we don't really have champions. We have issue-based people, right? And one of the comments that was made after that was, well, you're not in an industry that's selling ice cream cones, right? And hence, people are scared to be put into the spotlight and take the chance with that. But if you can tell us a little bit from your perspective, Norman, similarly on thoughts on taking responsibility not only for your organization, but the industry as a whole.
Sure. I mean, from a political advocacy aspect, starting with that first, if you don't mind, I think education is the most important thing. We deal with politicians all the time. They have no idea what a nursing home is about. I once had someone running for governor walk into the nursing home and said, is this an assisted living? I said, no, it's a nursing home. He says, what's the difference? So gave him a whole education on the difference between assisted living and nursing home.
Somebody running for the governorship.
And became the governor. But we had a state senator write a nasty article in one of the largest New Jersey papers about nursing homes and the staffing needs and how they have to increase staffing requirements and all that. Happens to be his mom was a doc in one of my nursing homes, so she got me an appointment with him. And I went with one of my state association leaders who's here today. We sat 2.5 hours in his office, and he was blown away by what we showed him, statistics and everything else. He said, I apologize, I got this from the union. That's all I knew. And they gave me this whole sheet of information. I see it's wrong. I'm gonna come to your nursing home. We got him to come to the nursing home. He was like, he says, I gotta do something about this, you know? And so I think educating the politicians, these are the guys who are deciding from a funding perspective. These are the guys who are working, you know, as far as talk about Capitol Hill, you know, regulation-wise, I think getting them. And so we actually encourage our administrators to do grassroots efforts, reach out to the local politicians, reach out to your local congressman, invite them down to the facility. We had, I mean, you gotta show them the good. We have, as an industry, we have a stigma about abusing patients. We have a stigma about poor care. No one hears about the good stuff we do. No one hears about the wonderful rehab, you know, things that we do. No one hears about the fact that we're taking care of these patients who no one else wants to take care of. Ronnie spoke about the different types of patients that we're seeing these days, opioid abuse, and taking care of these patients, doing such a great job. So I think it's important that we really showcase to the world what we're doing.
I know that we're going to get to some of the political issues we'll talk about in a second, but Ronnie, we spent some time over the last few months talking about what we can do, not so much for ourselves within our organizations, but it's time that we start educating the masses or getting involved in what we call industry-related matters, right? Caring for the industry in as much as ourselves. I know that you've been involved in some things from a political perspective and also can weigh in on the importance of understanding that, you know, Norman mentions education, right? Educating those around us, those that are new here in the industry, or those that have been around for a while but just have not been brought up to speed, the importance of figuring out a way that all of us can make a difference as a whole versus each one individual as an organization.
So us getting involved in the state associations, because most of this stuff for us, I mean, some people are very fortunate to have all Medicare buildings. That's become, you know,
Rare.
Much more rare. So Medicaid is really the driving force of many of our businesses. And as a result, that all happens on a state level for the most part, you know, besides block grants. So supporting your state association aggressively and becoming involved. You know, you can't look at a state association. Not all state associations are created equally. We're fortunate Joe D'Amatos is here from Maryland. He's the best of the best, honestly. You know, because he educates the administration, he's educating the legislature on what we do, and make them really understand, you know, that we're doing God's work. We really are. I mean, who are our team members taking care of the people? Many of them are literally one paycheck away from welfare, okay? And who are the people we're taking care of? Norman did a great job in explaining that. So really spending our time, but we can't complain if we're not involved. So our company's philosophy has always been very, very involved, not just, you know, being on the board, but actually we're sending people to all the different committees and really being involved. And then we have our say. We help push policy. But an operator alone is not going to be able to make a difference. We have to band together as groups. That's the only way we can make a difference.
I just want to piggyback for 1 second for what Ronnie's saying. I think as far as joining associations, Ronnie's in 7 states, we're in 6 states. We are members in every single one of the associations. And just like Joe D'Amato, John Dolan's here from New Jersey. And both of these gentlemen really advocate for the industry. Both members, non-members alike, but you know, many times I gotten calls, you know, Joe and John and the other states that we're associated with ask us, hey, could you reach out to this guy? Can you reach out to that guy? He just bought homes and maybe just, I think it's so important to join these associations because they are at the forefront, not only on the political perspective, but from the regulatory perspective. From the regulatory perspective, they're meeting with the Department of Health in the states that we're operating. They're there to advocate for us. We had a recent story in Massachusetts where we had, you know, the head of the association, Tara Gregorio, really sat down DOH and got them to back of one of their initiatives they were pushing that would just literally kill us. So I think it's extremely important that we get the new folks to come in and really support them.
Well, I think Bob, I'm going to turn to you for a second, but I just want to preface this by saying So political advocacy, right, is clearly an important piece of it. I know that there are some people in the room who are saying, look, there are people dealing with it. Let them do what they need to do, and you know, when it happens, I'll be okay, right?
They should be ashamed of themselves. That's what I think. They should be ashamed of themselves. If you're not willing, you have your life in this industry. If you're going to stay in the industry and you care about it, you should be stepping up on behalf of the state associations. You should be paying your dues. You should be going to every meeting. You should be inviting legislators into your facility. It's an equally vital part of our business is knowledge of PDPM and marketing your census and everything else. If you don't, you have to put it at that level to understand that. And people really have to get involved as a group on that. But you know, equally as important, I think, is the federal level of the game. You know, we've all been involved in state associations. Medicaid's always been our business. Medicare has been our margin, however, okay? And we can't forget where that's going, and it's not going in a direction that we particularly love. There are goods and ups and downs on that. There are good years, bad years, and so forth. Let's get a handle on it. You say we have no champions in Washington, you know. My experience has been in politics that you can give a campaign contribution to somebody and it'll buy you access. You can get in the door, he'll politely listen to what you'll have to say, he'll give it to a staffer, and adios, see you next campaign cycle, okay? That's not what you need. What you need to do is to build relationships. You build relationships with a few key individuals that you know can help you either move legislation or, equally importantly, kill legislation, okay? And that doesn't happen over a year. That happens over 5, 10, 20 years of consistency and involvement. And even then, when you know the guy so long and you really need him, if you're not passionate, you're not a guy with a good reputation, you're not a guy that he could hang his hat on, he's still not going to stick his neck out for you. So you have to keep all that in mind and build that process. Because I see young people here that are just starting. You know, I'm 40 some odd years in the business. If you want to stay in this business a long time, you have to build those building blocks today.
I think it's a good plug to mention. I don't know how many people here in this room have heard of the Ambassadors Group. I know that that's a project that we've been working on now for a couple of years. As time goes on, I think more people will hear about it, but the ability for folks that are in this industry, primarily focused on, we'll call it regional operators, particularly within our community, who want to see change, who want to influence change and create an opportunity for them to become a part of the Ambassadors Group and really start making changes both on a national level and on a state level. But if I can digress for a minute, so all of you guys have experience here, all of you guys have grown your organizations. I'm sure you look back at it and say, wow, that was a real pain. If I would have known that, I would have done things differently, or please, somebody, let me tell you something that I think would save you a lot of grief. You can give me something, Ronnie, as you grew your organization and growing, what is one or two things that if you look back and said, if I would have known this, would have helped me out?
When you're growing your organization, it's like bolts, and you keep stretching, and the weakest link blows out. So I could say, luckily for us, the weakest link was payables, because, you know, if you pay a little late, nothing happens. It would have been receivables, it would have been done. So the key is we overstaff administrative operations, our back office. You have to overstaff it because you have to be ready to be able to plug in more buildings. The buildings themselves, whenever you're doing an acquisition, already has a staff. Could be a bit better, could be a bit worse, and you can tweak it. But the back office, if you're not able to pay payroll, if there's a drop, or if you're not able to collect your money, you really will have serious problems. So my greatest suggestion is make sure you have the systems in place and the staff in place to be able to handle your back office. Again, front office, anyway, there's nothing you're going to do the first second until you take over. So that was always our position. Again, one of our first acquisitions, we didn't do it the right way, and we had issues. But from that point forward, when we know something's coming, we will staff up immediately and just, you know, put that as a cost of the deal.
Norman, you've been growing. Some of the challenges or anything particular that, wow, if I would have done this or known this, spent more time on or resources on it could have
Sure.
made a
I mean,
difference.
I think being able to scale things and really having your pulse on your buildings, because once you lose your pulse on the buildings, the operations go to hell. You got to be able to build right teams, and you have to make sure that your teams themselves have that same culture and vision that you have, right? They have to have that same passion. You talked about passion before. Once you lose that passion, and it doesn't trickle down to your staff, not only your administrative staff and your back office staff, but down to your CNAs, down to your line staff, I think that's where people lose it. And what we've done over the years, obviously sticking to our markets that we're in, is build off of that. And I think seeing other operators be all over the country, I mean, you just have a hard time being able to go from East Coast, West Coast. We did, as you know, we had Midwest, and we just, from being able to operate the way we operate and be where we needed to be, it just didn't work. So sticking to your catchment area and doing it the way it is.
I totally agree with him, and regionalize. People have to recognize that what works in New Jersey doesn't work in Utah, and if you don't recognize that fairly quickly, you think you have the capability because you did well in New Jersey that you're going to do well in Utah, and don't recognize that you need local partners, local relationships, people on the ground that know the particular culture of that state. You're going to get into trouble very fast without recognizing the state, and so don't think that you could just easily do that. But I would say that, and we've been good at this, but I think you always need to be better at good communication with your staff. So really talking to people, really getting one-on-one with them. And two, really marketing your product. We don't spend enough time and effort marketing our product and marketing our service and building image and awareness that we're a vital part of the healthcare continuum. And we deserve respect for it. So.
Outside of culture that you mentioned, Bob, from state to state, operationally, for those that are looking to grow out of state or taking on a new state, is it copy and paste? Is it regionalized the same way you're doing it there, or does it change completely?
Yes. I feel strongly that every building is unique. People forget when when it's all just playing pieces. Each building is like a $10 million business with 100 employees. Like each building is a massive business, and the ED, we call him executive director, administrator, is a CEO of a company. In most of America, that's a large company. So in actuality, the way we look at things is not so much on a state by state. We look at every single building, and each building has to have a reason. We call it a reason to exist. What are you going to do for your community that makes you a valuable part? Again, like Mr. Hartman said, a valuable part of the healthcare continuum. And if we can't find that, we have a real problem. And just so you understand, we have closed buildings ourselves, just closed them, not many, but we have, where they weren't a valuable part of the community because there weren't enough people. We didn't feel we could staff it properly.
Never getting there.
And we just weren't, we just rather donate it and take a deduction than, obviously they weren't great buildings to begin with, or someone would have bought it from us. But the bottom line is that it's just not for us. So we look at every building on a building by building basis as a unique entity.
I know that we're running out of time. We have 5, 6, 7 minutes left. We talked about the past. We talked about some of the challenges that have been taking place in our industry. If you were to look forward and say today, I know we mentioned a couple of things, the one specific area that you see as the challenge coming down the pike over the next 3 to 5 years, what is that one challenge? Norman.
Right now, I think the biggest challenge is not census, although there are always opportunities and challenges. I think the biggest challenge...
Census is an outcome.
Right. I think the biggest challenge we are facing in the industry, and we brought it up in one of the recent meetings we had, is staffing. There's not enough staff to take care of patients. No one wants to get paid $13, $12, $14 an hour when they can get paid $15, $16 at Target or Walmart or anywhere else. So it's becoming more and more challenging to get line staff, and then even the nurses, even to get LPNs,
And
RNs.
what is your organization doing? I'm sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
But
So, thinking out of the box, many areas. We've invested a lot in HR and recruitment. We have our own recruitment team in the back office, 3, 4 folks who work in the recruitment department, focusing a lot on employee retention, reducing turnover, because if you can't get them, at least make sure they're not leaving the back door. Another thing we've done, again, thinking out of the box, besides, I mean, these days you got to be flexible with staffing, as far as shifts. People want different shifts. You got to be flexible with that. But thinking out of the box, we actually recently opened up an office in Puerto Rico and are recruiting nurses from Puerto Rico. So, in the past, we've, I think recruited staff from the Philippines, and I think under this administration, it's getting more and more difficult from an immigration standpoint, but, we've opened an office there and we're recruiting staff from there. So you got to really think out of the box. But if we don't work from a political perspective with, the politicians on figuring this out, we are not going to have staff to take care of our patients.
And I know that's a topic on the top of the list for the ambassador groups that we've been talking about. Bob, what is the one challenge you see?
Well, I don't know whether I could answer the question in the next 3 to 5 years, from a challenge standpoint. I'd like to talk about like a bigger idea than that, maybe a little longer term idea. I'm worried about 10 to 20 years, really, rather than 3 to 5 years. And I'll tell you what I'm worried about. The boomer generation and all of those people are coming, right? They have lived a life through nursing homes having a bad image and so forth. They will do everything humanly possible not to come into a nursing home, okay? I mean, I'm getting to the age where I could be a mystery shopper in one of my own buildings, you know what I mean, right? So I'm thinking about this too. Would I go to one of my own buildings, right? And so forth, right? Would I try and do everything possible not to? So I think we really need to give thought to rebranding the nursing home image and rebranding the business. You said assisted living, nursing home, right? Assisted living, positive image. Nursing home, negative connotation, right? Why? We're an equal or better provider. We're a cheaper provider. We're a more consistent provider, right? Why can't we do it? And the answer is that a lot of smart people, and there are a lot of smart people at this conference, they have to sit down and they have to make a goal that in the next 5 to 10 years, they will redefine what we do as part of the healthcare continuum, and by doing so, make it palatable for the boomers to come to our buildings. So I'm worried about that.
So rewriting the narrative, I think, is something we've been talking about for a little while, particularly in Washington. I mean, Norman, you used the example of politicians not even knowing the difference between an assisted living and a nursing home. Education is a big piece of that rewrite. One area, biggest challenge you see?
I'm with Norman that staffing, we're in a situation that we do have buildings that are going to have to stop taking census because we just don't have enough people. But what we've done we've really analyzed this with a lot of analytics, and it's not an input problem. We are recruiting. There are people who would rather work in a nursing home than a factory. I'm just giving an example. Our problem is culture. They don't want to stay. And it's a problem, to take you, it's the millennial generation is not interested. They're not as empathetic. That's what we're seeing, and they don't want to do the work. So we keep on bringing them in, churning them, and bring them out. And the damage that's created in the churn, remember, it's people having relationships with people. So when we have team members who are there for 20 years, they start really loving those residents and taking care and knowing what their needs are. When you have people who don't care, they walk in, then very, very bad things occur. So what we really are focused on is retention and culture. Norman, you discussed culture, and we even hired a chief people officer from a different industry just to do that. A real executive, a high-level executive from a major corporation, just to how do we keep people and make their job fulfilling and them wanting to stay. Because again, we're getting most of the places except rural, very rural, we're getting people to apply. We're just churning them, and that's just very, very damaging.
I want to end the session with kind of a rapid fire on a list of 6, 7 topics.
No. Okay.
10-second answers or less. With the baby boomers coming, will census continue to be a problem down the road? Norman.
Yes and no. I think, again, Bob.
10 seconds.
Yes.
Bob?
No.
Yes.
Will PDPM stay as the way we know it with today?
No.
No.
We're going into full value-based. No, it's going to be all managed care going forward, in my opinion.
Okay. Best technology platform that has impacted your industry, anything that you've used specifically?
Sure. SNF metrics, I think it's Great program that is a data analytics, just gives us everything we need from financial information, clinical information, risk management information. Best push of a button, tip your fingers, you got it all.
Anything
No
technological?
clue,
Bob?
have to ask my son Mark.
Ronnie?
Telehealth. Telehealth is a game changer. If you use it right, integrate in the system, it's a game changer. You have a doctor there.
Starting off with you, Ronnie, do you plan to grow extensively over the next 5 years, stay idle, or addition by subtraction?
We're opportunistic, so we put nothing off the table. So if there's any deals, just
Bob?
Symphony, and we'll look at the same deals. So, grow.
So growing mode.
Sure, we're growing. I mean, we've diversified now. We're getting into the AL business. So now that I know the answer routine in AL and nursing homes, yes,
Norman, do you have NPs in your facilities?
we do. We do. We actually have an NP company that we, pay in a monthly fee, but we actually hired in some of our extremely high acuity buildings in Boston, downtown Boston. We have NPs that we actually employ on our own.
NPs in all your facilities, Bob?
Yes, we should be helping to train MPs. It's the future. So,
we believe in it strongly. Where we don't have it, we're putting them.
You do significant renovations to your facilities, and how often?
Okay, we used to do significant renovations, crazy renovations, but I'll be telling, as the Medicare ice cube has melted, now we're doing basically floors, paint, pictures, and some soft goods. So much less than we used to do.
Bob?
not enough money for CapEx. Need more CapEx, absolutely.
Yeah, we actually own our own construction company, so we do every single one of our buildings gets a massive facelift, soup to nuts.
How often?
Well, when we take over the building, we start right away, and I would say probably every 7 years.
Norman, do you outsource back office functions?
No, we used to. LTC, big shout out to LTC, great people, Ben Mandelbaum. But full disclosure, we took everything back in house, and we do a fantastic job. Just as good as them, but we do a great job.
Okay. Bob?
We outsourced, and we should have done it sooner. So,
Okay.
It depends on your scale. So a small operator, I would suggest outsourcing. The larger you get, it becomes much more efficient to do it in-house.
yep.
Okay. Last but not least, third-party vendors, whether it's housekeeping, laundry, dietary, something you believe in, or just keeping them.
We have it. It just depends how you manage it.
Believe in it.
Believe in it, and then ever since been in the industry, been using them. Great partners, really great partners to work with.
Well, I want to thank the panel of Ronnie, Bob, and Norman.
Thank you.
Hope everybody was able to gain something from it. Looking forward to seeing you the rest of the panel.